بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين أما بعد فقد قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أصبح منكم آمنا في سربه معافا في جسده عنده قوت يومه فكأنما هزت له الدنيا صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many ways He's blessed us in this world and given us a variety of different things for us to be grateful for. And one of the things which we find that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself and also Allah in the Quran emphasize on a lot is the importance of being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your brothers are really far away, I'm not really sure. But yeah, if you mind moving forward a little bit, it'd be better. Come closer to the camera, inshallah. Don't worry, you can feature in the film if you want. It's not gonna, you're not gonna be in it, it's alright. You just move forward a bit, mashallah. It's just a bit more engaging. What's your name, brother?
Ahmad.
Ahmad. Inshallah. Okay, Ahmad. Okay, that's good. Okay, so obviously if we were to analyze our own lives, or generally just look around us or think about everything that there is in the world, we'll find many reasons to be grateful. However, very often we need to take that time out to perform the exercise of actually identifying what it is in my life that me as an individual I need to be grateful for. Very often we forget that. We forget how important it is for us to actually be grateful. So even if we were to think just about the gathering we're in right now and the fact that we've had the ability to come and sit down and sacrifice some of our time to try and learn about deen, try and learn a bit about Allah, try and learn about what deen wants from me, what Islam wants from me. And then the fact that we got the opportunity to come and pray Maghrib with Jama'ah. Some of us got to lead the Jama'ah. And we got this opportunity to sit here. And then while we were praying Maghrib, we had this opportunity to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And after that, then just pray more nawafil and have that, try and connect more to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then after all of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He then gave us the ability to sit down. So we can all think to ourselves how many blessings there are of Allah currently on us. This is just one aspect of them. So we can all think how in different ways Allah has blessed us right now. And if I was to ask everyone, we could all come up with different things. So if everybody was to say one thing which they have as a blessing, then that way we'll brainstorm and we'll see how different there is. Isn't it? Come on, start with Dhiya, inshallah. Just quickly, whoever wants to, just quickly say one thing which they consider a blessing of Allah.
Just about today or about generally?
Anything generally.
Parents?
Having parents, mashallah.
Being a Muslim.
Being a Muslim, so Iman generally.
Yeah.
Okay,
Eating food.
Food, mashallah. And?
Just a simple necessities like eyesight. And
mashallah. So even parts of the body.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So obviously that's something which we can always consider. So if we went through it, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, that if you were to try and count ni'mat Allah, one of the blessings of Allah, then لَا تُحْصُوهَا, you would not be able to encompass it. Ihsa, to kind of fully grasp the understanding of how much of a great blessing that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If somebody tried, they wouldn't be able to do it. So now we go from one blessing. If you started with parents, now how many different blessings come under that? The blessings which we had in having our parents, then both of our parents, and the things they've done for us. And how long does that go for? I mean, from the day we were born, before we were born, that blessing started. And then the upbringing which we got, the spiritual upbringing, and obviously the materialistic upbringing, the house we had, the food that they used to always give us, the education which they gave us, the understanding of Islam and deen that they gave us, so many different blessings. If we were to just focus on parents for the whole time, we could spend easily 15, 20, half an hour just talking about the blessing of parents. And Iman, we very often do. Very often we take out so much time just to talk about Iman and how lucky we are to have Islam. And then our other necessities, now this is why when you brainstorm, everybody has something else in their mind. Now, something as simple as food, especially when it comes to charity collections and we're thinking of collecting for other people. Now, this thing very often comes to our mind, and very often we mention this, that how if we're making a cup of coffee, or we're making some kind of food, some kind of takeaway food, the ones you put in the microwave or put it in the oven, because none of us know how to cook. So when we do that kind of thing, then when we're having that food, if we spill that cup, it doesn't make any difference to us. We just make another cup. It's completely, we're so indifferent to that. Even if that food was to go off, that's how much we have at our disposal. Some people, that one meal which we take for granted and we don't even think about twice, that's something which is it means so much to them. and all these other necessities, and then you mentioned the other necessities. So, like, even if we were to just consider coming here today, there'd be so many blessings in that. The fact that we're here today, the fact we're sacrificing this time, we've got the desire to learn knowledge, to try and improve ourselves, to make ourselves better. I mean, imagine if we had no intention of making ourselves better. Imagine if Allah had given us some kind of pride inside our heart, that we think we're so good that we can never sit in front of somebody and learn knowledge. We can never sit in a gathering where we might have to, consider ourselves in some way, we have to consider ourselves deficient. If we consider ourselves perfect, then we can't sit and learn knowledge. It's impossible. So that ability to do that is something which Allah has given us. So that's just from being here today. That's one of the things. And also generally what you said about the essentials generally. So overall, if we look in our body, just the fact that we can breathe air, this is such a massive blessing. Continuously we're doing, and all of the blessings I mentioned so far, that if we were to say وَإِن تَعُدُّوا, if we were to try and do ihsan, if we try and encompass it and fully understand it, each of them we would be so much to encompass. One blessing of Allah. This is why when Allah mentions in the Quran وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, if you were to try and encompass just one blessing, try and count and understand and appreciate just one blessing of Allah. Now every one of us mentioned one blessing, but all of them have so much, so many ways we can digress in all of them. So this is how we understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings on us. And the things that we grow up with, and many of us, we have families and parents, such a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how much they benefit us in so many different ways. We just continue going through that. The fact that we've got a place in a university, and what that means for our future, what that means for what we're doing right now, and also not necessarily how that relates to the future, but how that relates to my present life. Because if you ask somebody who's finished studying how they found the life of studying and the general time which they were wise, they always say it was one of the best times of their life. So like while we're here, if we only realize that we're having a great time after we've stopped having the great time, it's always a big problem. And this is the main thing I want everyone to take away from today, the one point, which is that let's not let our blessings only become blessings when we lose them, because this is the majority of blessings are like that. So we take anything. So for those of us that like being in university, or we enjoy the university life, but we never actually take out time to appreciate every single aspect of how much we enjoy the social life, the educational life, generally just not having many worries and being quite chilled out about everything. These kind of blessings, sometimes we just don't take out the moment to think about them or to appreciate them. So that's one great thing about so many things that we have just about that university life. But if we do that with everything, even having parents is something which in so many ways they're a blessing for us. And most people, they only realize that when they lose their parents. So if you ask somebody who's lost their parents, only then they appreciate. But even the people who had parents and have now lost them, their full appreciation for the parents only came when they lost their parents. So it's up to us, if we do have parents, we fully appreciate the parents that we have. And we try and take out this time to try and realize that we don't need to lose the blessing to be able to appreciate the blessing. So now we can walk everywhere, we're healthy, there's so many things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And generally just living inside this country, we have this security, generally we have this peace, we have we can walk around safely, we don't feel threatened. Generally in Colchester we can walk around in relative safety, we don't fear many other people coming and doing ridiculous things. Whereas in many parts of the world, people don't have this. They don't have this safety. And also, just the area that we live in, it's a respectable area. Being Essex, most of us come from outside of Essex to live in Essex. And then we get the opportunity to spend 3 years living here. You're so fortunate. Mashallah, you should value this blessing as much as you can, as long as you're here, inshallah. Like Colchester, you have a zoo, you have a castle. People come from, when we were at school, from Chancellor, used to come to visit the zoo and mashallah, you guys every day you got the opportunity. If you wanted, you could go to the castle every day, you could go to the zoo every day. The oldest recorded city in the UK, as you know, in Britain. So you can see all these, especially most of us, we go to the masjid. So if you look out the window of the masjid, see that beautiful, that battleground which you can see. I mean, usually you have to travel to places which have conserved these kind of things, all the way to Egypt and stuff. People go to Egypt to look at, anyway, you're lucky to be. And there's one thing actually on my list here, which is the Sharia compliant halal restaurant, which we have as well, despite the fact that we're in such a posh so-called area.
Could you tell us the name, please?
This is being recorded.
Kind sponsor Route 66.
Yeah, now, but alhamdulillah, so even from an Islamic perspective, like we can go to a restaurant, there'll be no mixing there, there'll be no alcohol there, and obviously we'll recommend this inshallah, the restaurant, which we have a Sharia compliant restaurant in Colchester.
Once again, Route 66 for anyone who's watching.
Okay, so moving on to the next point. The Prophet ﷺ himself, as we try and focus on hadith here. The Prophet ﷺ, he himself, in the hadith we mentioned at the beginning, where the Prophet ﷺ, he said that man asbaha minkum aminan fi sirbihi mu'afan fi jasadihi indahu quta yawmihi. Three qualities that a person, if he has these three things, then the Prophet ﷺ, he describes this person as if he has the whole world. The whole of the world he has before him. So كأنما هيزت له الدنيا, because he's got everything. What more could this person ask for? The three things. The first thing, آمنا في سرب, which you mentioned, that living in an area where everybody's feeling content. And generally the sirb, some people say just with his family, or just he wakes up. So man asbaha minkum, whoever wakes up from you, and he wakes up in the morning, and in the morning he has these three things. The place he wakes up is not a place he feels threatened. He doesn't feel somebody's going to come and rob him, somebody's going to come and attack him. And even the mental state of mind for that. Many people, they live, maybe they're our neighbours, but because of a robbery which happened recently, or because of the way that they perceive statistics or the crimes, they don't feel safe, even though they're living in the same place. So this mental state of purity is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses us with. And if we wake up with that calmness of mind and be able to go about our life, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes this as somebody who has a lot of the world. Mu'afan fi jasadi. Second thing is the body. So a person, not only is he feeling safe mentally, but also his body is salim, he's mu'af, he doesn't have any kind of illness in his body, he doesn't have deficiency in his body, he's not disabled in any way. So all of us, we have these things, that we managed to walk here ourselves. We didn't have problems getting here, so we don't have to obstruct it in any way. So we don't have any obstructions or obstacles in coming here. So we're allowed to walk freely. And this is such a massive blessing. And obviously, again, like I said at the beginning, the main point, that let's value that, because there will be a time where unfortunately we won't be able to walk as well, or that time may come upon us. So let's not let that point where we stop being able to walk be the only time where we actually start appreciating the fact that we can walk. So now we just, this whole list which we went through, it gives us the appreciation of how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us in so many different ways. And then the third thing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said is about food, that in the qutu yawmihi, that he has the qut is just enough to get through that day. Very small amount of food. And in fact the Prophet ﷺ used to pray for this, that Allahumma ij'al quta ali Muhammad, that the Prophet ﷺ asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the rizq of the Prophet ﷺ's family qut, that he makes it just enough for them to get through. He doesn't make it so much. So this is one of the requests of the Prophet ﷺ, and this is enough for us to get through the day. Now most of us, like I mentioned, that we'd have enough coffee to last us out. If we drink tea or coffee, we'd have enough tea bags and coffee to last us for probably the whole month. The sugar would be enough, the milk would be enough, and all of this, even if it wasn't enough, it wouldn't be a case of, oh, we can't get it. And also the fact that the shops have it. This is something which is, sometimes we don't realize this. If you go to a war zone sometimes, everybody's got money, but none of the shops have the necessities of the people. So now if we went out, within the university village, we'd find everything we needed. We wouldn't even have to go out to a local shop. Just so in our own little circle, within literally the place of where we educate ourselves, within that place we could find everything we needed. We could find shops which supply for us. So much convenience. That's such a, sometimes we don't appreciate that I can walk into a shop and buy whatever I want. Now, even if we didn't have the money, we've got the convenience there. And this is this security, and that continuously will have this supply. And so much blessing. We can talk about just the supply chain of a loaf of bread coming onto the shelf into the supermarket. How many people have to work hard behind that? And then we just walk in and pick it up. And we have that. We get to kind of buy all of that labor for something which is affordable for us, and that's been put for us. So these are the achievements which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So this is qut yawmihi. فَكَأَنَّمَا هِزَتْ لَهُ الدُّنْيَا. So these are the three things. Now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes this person as hizat lahu dunya. He's got the whole world. So now we can ask ourselves that how many of us have all three of these? And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes that this person, he can't complain. He can never say, why is it that I'm missing something. What is it that he's missing? He's got food, he's got safety in the place he's living, and also he's got health. Yeah, so these are the three things. And if we have all three of these things, how can we complain about any of these things? So this is the way the Prophet ﷺ describes it. And so we have to ask ourselves, how can we complain at this point? How can we complain about any of these problems that we have? Yeah, so this is something we should always try and be grateful for. This is how the Prophet ﷺ explains. And in fact, in other hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, again, the way he indicates on these things. So there's one very, very famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he says, "Iqtanim khamsan qabla khamsin." Iqtanim, think, in Urdu we say, take it as a ghanima. Treat it, ghanimat samjo, that treat it as something of value, something which is worth something, because most people, they don't value these 5 things. So iqtanim khams, value 5 things before 5 other things come and make the original 5 things worthless. And this is the whole point of the lecture. This is the one thing I want us to keep in mind, that the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions these 5 things so that all 5 of these things we focus on them and we keep them as blessings. Otherwise we lose them, and while we had them, we'll never have had the chance to benefit from these 5 things. So this is how the Prophet ﷺ describes them. And the 5 things the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, one is youth, which alhamdulillah we all have, and one is the health, which he's already mentioned in another hadith. So both of these 2 things come together, having youthfulness and having health. It means we can do things, we can do whatever we want, and we can do it however we want. And then the third thing the Prophet ﷺ, he says, is the fact that a person has financial security. Financially, he's not worried. He's not worried where his next meal is going to come from. You know, and alhamdulillah, we have this, and he just takes all that stress off our mind. Even if a person doesn't have a job, but he knows that he's got a source of income which gives him that security, he doesn't have to worry, and he's working towards a long-term plan. So he's working towards certainty. This is such a great blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then the Prophet ﷺ says that free time, value free time, and this is something, you know, alhamdulillah, we've got the chance to come out and we're financially secure enough to spend 2 or 3 years trying to earn a degree, and that's such a great blessing. We can just take out, we've got that time, so we've got this free time to actually engage in that. And then also while we're studying, you know, some people do degrees on the side, as we know, so we do have free time in the middle. So we try and use that time also in order to benefit ourselves and to benefit our deen and our Islam, and also for other people, we try and benefit other people in that. So this, and the last thing the Prophet ﷺ, he summarizes everything and says, وَحَيَاتِكَ قَبْلَ مَوْتِكَ, that you value your life before death comes, because at the time of death, every blessing we've ever had, all of that will be worth so much. Imagine just that one breath at that time. If we could have a few more breaths, people would want so much. Nowadays we take it all for granted, but when that happens, there'll be so much value for every breath, for every time the heart pumped something, pumped blood around the body, every moment of life we had, every food morsel that we ate, every time we spent with our loved ones. All of that becomes so much more valuable. So value that before death comes. This is what the Prophet ﷺ tells us at the end. And again, the main problem with this is because we only realize after we lose it. So that's why the attention is drawn, and that's how we benefit from this. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, the way the Quran starts off with Alhamdulillah, the very first thing we ever recite in the Quran is praise. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for His blessings. And then in other parts of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He describes the way He created the human body, and He talks about how even to the extent of the fingertips, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ala qadirina ala an nusawwiya banan, is not capable that He makes the fingertips properly, and even the fingerprints, the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made everything about the body so unique and so perfect. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in different places of the Quran, the fact He made us in pairs and from different things, and gave us so many blessings. And even if you read the Quran, one of the key things we'll leave with is the amount of blessings Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, because He talks about how He's created the whole world for the benefit of humanity. And then the Quran itself obviously is a blessing which we can talk about as well. And gratitude, now moving on, gratitude is a very kind of universal, it's not just an Islamic topic. Spiritual, most people even in this country, they always emphasize on this because it benefits in different ways. So we notice a person who has gratitude, he benefits himself not just spiritually, not just Islamically, but also his life, it changes as well. So there's different benefits. And one of the key things is that it benefits in three ways. One is the body itself, one is the mind, and one is the soul. All three benefits. The body, obviously, the tension gets released. A person, if you fully understand what gratitude means, it means that you are happy with what you've got now. You can make a list of everything you've got and be happy about it. You don't have to make a list of things that you want and don't have, and therefore get unhappy about the fact that you don't have them, and then make a lifelong effort to get all of those things. So that it completely turns the tables around. It allows us to be content and happy. It gets rid of that tension from our heart a lot of the time, and it releases, and it makes our body better. Also from the mind, it makes a person have contentment and makes him happier. So the effect is very similar on both the body itself, because it releases the tension, and on the mind as well. It just makes somebody calm, more focused, more productive. When a person can actually focus on what he has, and then he says, I've got this, I've got this, I've got X, Y and Z, and use all of these things which he has in order to achieve more, in order to focus on what he actually wants to achieve, rather than saying, I haven't got the X, Y, or Z, I've got nothing, and then spend the whole life trying to achieve the things which he thinks he needs. So it makes us more productive overall as well, mentally and spiritually. Of course, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it makes us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, he even mentions that وَاشْكُرُوا لِلَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. If you worship Allah, then make sure you thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well. And إِنَّا هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ إِمَّا شَاكِرًا وَإِمَّا كَفُورًا. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that for them هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ, we've set out the path. هَدَيْنَاهُ السَّبِيلَ. Now every human now has the choice. إِمَّا شَاكِر, either he's thankful, or imma kafura. And the opposite of shakir is kafur, to be almost a kafir, because a kafir is somebody who's ungrateful of all the guidance which Allah gives, somebody who doesn't appreciate what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that we are grateful, or we are kafur, or we are on the other side. And even shaitan, very often being grateful to Allah is synonymized with iman itself. So even when in the Quran, shaitan, he obviously promises, Allah says when he's exiled from Jannah, and then he promises to lead everyone astray in that ayah, ثُمَّ لَآتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. That after I come to the humans, I'll come from behind, I'll come from above, and from all directions I will try and attack the human. And then ثُمَّ, as a result of my ploy and my plan, لَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ, you will find them all, you will not find any of them shakir, as grateful. So shaitan's plan is to make and this grip on society overall, the materialistic grip on society, it's very, very apparent. We don't have to look far. Every advert calls us to something which we don't need, but the advert tells you that you need it. And every time you watch anything, you now everywhere, the most common way, if we were to try and make an online business, one of the most common ways, if you were to try and make a website and get traffic to that website, the way of monetizing that is to put an advert there. That's how the world works, and the advert will tell somebody that they need something which most of the time they don't actually need. And this is how the world works. We're always told that you need this phone, you need this car, you need this kind of house, you need this kind of education for your kids, you need to have this kind of standard of living. And if you don't have that, then you're missing out. So everybody's always looking at what they're meant to be having rather than what they have, and then being happy about what they have. And this is, shaitan promises to make everybody ungrateful. They may have everything. Look how much we have. At the beginning of the dars, we all counted just one thing which we had, and that one thing for all of us went into such a massive thing, so many blessings out of that one thing. And if we sat down and thought about our life on a daily basis, so that list would just get longer and longer. So, and this is the ploy of shaitan. And then the greatest benefit of shukr, which Allah mentions in the Quran, that لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you are grateful, لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, I will give you more. And this is the greatest blessing we can ever want. We can't want more than that. So when Allah promises that when we are grateful and we show gratitude, then in every aspect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will then increase us. So this is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also it's important to realize this, that the society we live in, it doesn't help us be grateful. It's a society which calls us towards being ungrateful and wanting more and looking at what we don't have. The society will never say, look how fortunate you are, you're fine, you need to look at what you have and be happy. Society doesn't want that. No business wants to do that. Every business has something to sell you, so it's going to come and tell you that you need this, you need this, you need this, and this is why you need it. And then they'll make an advert and spend thousands, if not millions of pounds to prove to you that you need that thing, and they'll keep putting it in your face. And this is how the whole, so now when the environment we live in teaches us that if everyone's affected by these adverts, obviously there's more than just adverts, it's not just adverts which affects everyone, but if just the advert was to affect everyone, then we living in that environment of, because everyone else is affected by that, then we'd find it very hard to be grateful as well. So it requires that conscious effort to take out from our lives and to realize the blessings that we have. And the Prophet ﷺ, he also gives one solution to being grateful. And the Prophet ﷺ, in fact, he mentioned this in a hadith, that انظروا إلى من هو أسفل منكم ولا تنظروا إلى من هو فوقكم. انظروا, look at those people who are asfal, who are lower than you, who have less than you. So this is something very, very possible for us whenever there's any kind of charity appeal or any kind of war that goes on, or we look around the world, even within the UK, within Colchester. I mean, there's a lot of homeless people in Colchester who we see sleeping around and begging all the time. So we can just look at their lives and what they are missing. And generally people who don't have families like we do, families who support, or whatever it is, that we can always find some aspect of our life which will help us in different ways. So many of us will have families which will support us, and many people, and we can look at other people who are isolated, who don't have families. Many of us, we have great financial stability. Many of us, we have this opportunity for education, and all of these different opportunities we have, which other people are deprived of. And unfortunately, because they just don't have that opportunity. So we'll always find things to be grateful from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And something which affects that is when we look at those people who have less than us, who are less fortunate. And one of the main ways to bring gratitude into our lives is to actually practically look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, and then take out time on a daily basis to write it down. Otherwise we'll never be able to appreciate it until we lose it. So obviously this practically means that we take out, or we open our phone and we write it on our phone, and we actually write it in the notes section, or we take a piece of paper and we write on that piece of paper what it is that Allah has given us, and we make a list of those blessings. And every blessing, because Allah says وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا, that you can't encompass it. So we know we can't encompass it. So every one blessing on that list will have so many offshoots. So we can make the heading and then have so many blessings underneath. And if we do that for 1 minute every day, then we can start the day with actually smiling and feeling happy about what we have, rather than starting the day thinking I need this and I need this and I need this. And that will change our mindset. And there's so many benefits. Even nowadays people, they accept that this happens, this improves somebody's life in different things, because this is the only way we're going to discover those things which we take for granted. Many a time we say I don't take anything for granted, but we take everything for granted until we realize that we are taking it for granted. And then maybe we can make an effect to actually try and stop taking it for granted and think, yes, alhamdulillah, I have this, and actually be grateful. And obviously another way is to constantly say alhamdulillah, actually be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the main time when gratitude is actually going to come into effect is when we have a difficult time. If we don't have a difficult time, then the effect of gratitude is never going to actually manifest itself. We're just going to be in a process of living our life. When a difficult time comes and then we start being ungrateful, that's when that's the real time to be grateful. So obviously when the difficult time comes, we try and make a point to actually try and focus our attention on all the things which Allah has given us. And that one calamity and that difficult thing which we're happening, we realize that's just one thing. All these other blessings are still there, from the body, from our ability, from our relationships, from the fact that we're studying, and from the financial security that we have, and the food that we have. All of these things are still blessings, and there's just that one problem we have. But all of our focus goes to the problem and how to eradicate, as opposed to all of these other good things. But if we have a list, and we actually have made a list ourselves on a daily basis of the good things that we have, then we'll be able to overcome these problems of times of hardship as well. And the final thing is just to also entertain other people. This is something which is very important, that as when we ourselves are gracious and we have gratitude, we like our own lives, we'll enjoy our own lives, and we'll want to spend time with other people. We'll feel happy about qualities which, if you write down on that ni'mah, the qualities we have for ourselves, that if I'm a confident person, I'm a person who, when people are around me, they feel happy. I can make other people smile, or I can make other people feel better about themselves. I can speak to people and make them more closer to Allah. I can remind them of Allah. Whatever that quality is, we all have different qualities. Some of us we have the more smiling attitude, so people get more happy. Some people have the more crying attitude, so we remind them of death. So those two attitudes, we all have that. So this is how we can try and encourage other people. We try and spend time with people. Basically, we be friendly with people. We open up to people. And we believe that we have qualities which will benefit other people. So that increases that sense of community by being gracious. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us inshallah the ability to try and be as gracious and as grateful as possible inshallah. Ameen. Okay, questions are welcome inshallah.